Hi, I'm Guy Berry with the Optimistic American, and this is our book club. Today we're going to be talking about Good to Great by Jim Collins, and we're going to go through all the chapters of the book. You're going to hear us discuss how do we use this book in business, but also think about it as how could I use this for myself and in life. Today my guest is Mike Bechtel, the Vice President of Membership for Redirect Health. If you like our book club, please subscribe to our newsletter and you can learn more about the books we're going to be reading in the future, as well as please comment at the bottom of our YouTube page. We can always answer the comments and respond back to you. Okay, I'm here with Mike Bechtel, the Vice President of Membership for Redirect Health. So, Mike, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Guy. Excited to be here.
All right. So, we're going to talk about Good to Great from Jim Collins. And I read this book years ago, probably 2001, somewhere in there. Or I guess he wrote the book 2001, so right around there. And it was when it came out. And reading it now, years later, I found a different perspective. I was curious, when you first read it to when you read it now, how long has it been?
Probably, about 7 to 10 years I read it. And definitely having read some of his other books, most recently The Great by Choice, it was interesting going back and kind of revisiting a lot of his thoughts. And I also think having 5 to 7 years more in business and leadership and seeing our company run, just the how it applies to a lot of the things we're doing was interesting.
And what was interesting to me is I'm very big into flywheels, and then I go back and I read the book and realize flywheel was a concept in his book years ago, and he was one of the first people to coin the flywheel, or just that aspect of it in business, and we'll get into that a little bit later on the book. So as we go through the chapters of the book, I want to give just a quick rundown of the book, and you'll see that it goes from starts as good is the enemy of great, simple as that, to level 5 leadership, first who, then what, then goes into confronting the brutal facts, the hedgehog concept, a culture of discipline, technology accelerators, the flywheel, and doom loop, and then compares good to great to built to last. He hadn't written Great by Choice yet, so he was comparing it to one of his previous books. So when I look at all these concepts, was there one that stuck out to you in the book?
Yeah, and I think it was funny because I was listening to it with my daughter, and someone asked what her dad was doing, and he said listening to a book on hedgehogs and foxes. So I thought that was funny. But I think that probably stuck the most with me was the idea of the doing something small over and over and over again, shifted from the good to great, right? The discipline to do it over and over. And we've seen it in our company as we've done the same things that work, and the idea of the flywheel, getting it spinning. So those would probably be the two concepts: was the hedgehog, the small incremental wins over and over, and the discipline to do them, and then the speed at which that can get the flywheel moving.
Yeah, and the concept of the hedgehog, right, is this aspect of the fox versus the hedgehog, and the sly fox has numerous ways of how he's going to attack this hedgehog. He's going to think of this way or that way, or going to get him over here, and the hedgehog is like, really, we're going to do this again? I'm just going to roll up into a little ball. I'm going to make my spikes come out, and you're going to go away. We do this over and over and over again, but I have one thing I know I'm really good at, and if I do that, I always win. And truly in business, how many times we get distracted with all the other shiny objects or anything? What do you do to help keep you from get distracted so you can simplify things?
Yeah, and so for us, I think one of the things is meeting, but not the meeting itself, but what we talk about at the meetings. We have 0 reports or reports that direct us to see when we're getting off track and helping us remember, hey, these are the things we've chosen to focus on, and there's a reason behind them. I've seen anytime we get off that path, it's either somebody new's come on and they have a different idea of or a way to do it better, or we've missed the vision, right? And we forgot what the original vision was. And a lot of times you go back to that original vision. What I liked about the hedgehog concept is in the new book, and in Great by Choice, he talked about the 20-mile march. So it's the same principle of doing it over and over, but that it leads to great things. And I saw last week, I think I was watching YouTube somewhere, and it was Kobe Bryant, and he was talking about the 1% improvement every day. He's like, you don't have to make these huge jumps. You just improve 1% every day. What happens after a year and 5 years and 10 years? When we get distracted, you lose the 1%, right? And now you have to go backwards and try to make it up. And I think that's the discipline of doing that, and also having a company that has that as its focus, but leaders who are continually reminding you to, keep your eyes focused on the hedgehog, right?
Yep.
And on those actions.
Yeah. And going to the book, so we start with chapter 1, and in chapter 1, it's good is the enemy of great. And what I ask you is, how do you, it's very easy to be good, right? We can all live a great life, happy life, successful life, and be good. We don't have to keep pushing to be great. And that is why they use this, the word enemy of great, because you could be good and never go for there. So I think of you as somebody who's always striving to be great. And I'd be curious, what do you believe creates that differentiation? How do you go from the thought of, hey, I'm good, to no, I'm gonna keep trying and keep reinventing myself? What do you think drives you to keep pushing that way?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I think too many people in their lives, maybe not even just in business, but in their lives, are okay to skate by. And so good becomes this measure at which we're all okay with, right? Whether it's in school, relationships with kids and family members, it's just nobody notices if we're good. It's okay. Whereas if we're bad or we're great, it seems to get noticed more. I think for me, I don't know that I strive to be great, but I think it drives, there's just a happiness in me that comes from always trying to improve and be better. The other thing I would think is just to see that in other people. I really enjoy that with working with, the teams I have here and the leaders we have at our company, is just seeing those improvements. It's really cool. And even, Dave Berg, our founder, who constantly is pushing me to be better. I think that's something I thought, man, why is he being such a jerk all the time? And as the more I've got to know him, is the way he's described it is, there's these ceilings we hit and then we break through, and then all of a sudden there's all this new learning. And he could care a lot about me in the moment and not push me to do that growth, and I would be good. But he's always looking 6 months, a year, 5 years in the future to say, hey, what if you did this a little different or push this? And it becomes uncomfortable in the moment, but every time I've had that breakthrough, it's like there's a whole new world of learning and capabilities, unique abilities that I learned about myself. So I think just that the drive to learn, but then to help, lead others and coach others is the kind of the motivating factor, I'd say.
And what I heard in there is it's also the people around us, right? So if we surround ourselves with people who are happy and don't really push us, then maybe we just stay in this one box. But if we surround ourselves with people who are always pushing us and driving us and helping us, try to achieve the next thing or move forward, it creates movement. Yeah,
that's a great point. I saw a video yesterday on it. It was kind of a silly video. It's a shark swimming, and there's 2 sharks and 3 sharks, and there's millions of fish, and they're just parting the way. And it was, the kind of the header said something like, surround yourself with great people and, you'll grow. But yeah, it's a great point of being around, people that are going to motivate you and push you to be better is important.
I would guess there was a lot of people around Michael Jordan that made him great, or even Kobe Bryant, as they were growing. Or we could pick other people who are not basketball stars. All right, so level 5 leadership. Okay, this goes in the next chapter, and really what it's talking about, I'm going to read it so that I don't mess this part up of the book, but really there's 5 levels. Level 1, a highly capable individual. Level 2, a contributing team member. Level 3, a competent manager. Level 4, effective leader. And level 5, build enduring greatness through the blend of personal humility and professional will. And so in the book, what they're saying is, hey, there are great leaders, CEOs, that get to this level 4 concept, which they're really good at driving, but it's more about driving everybody through their leadership saying, hey, go do it, go do it. And then level 5 is this new approach of, hey, you know what? When the company does well, it's because everybody in the company is doing a great job. It has nothing to do with me. But if the company's doing bad, then it's something about me and my leadership that's messing this up. And there's a part of the book where he says, people wonder, can I learn this? And I'd be curious, what do you think? Do you think people can adapt or change or move and have that capability of becoming that level 5 leader?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think it can be a learned skill. I think certain personalities will take it on easier. A couple of the things that I took from it were like, they're saying, hey, a level 5 leader has this humility. They don't take credit for the wins. They're very quick to take credit for the losses. But I think what you just read also was about the building. And so there's lots of leaders that, you see it in different teams and different coaches and things like that, where the team and the company is great because the leader is leading, but they don't build the lasting thing. And when they leave, it falls apart. Yep. And I think that, where I'm taken is the measure of a true level 5 leader is you build something so good that when you leave, it continues to grow without you. Think of the flywheel too. That's hard for people. A lot of us operate in like a scarcity mindset, right? Where if I share all this information or this learning, they're not going to need me. What value am I going to have? And so I hold something back, or I think it's because of me something happened, instead of going, let me build this so great so that when I step away, it continues to work and I can go work on something else and grow something else.
Yep. And so we move into first who, then what, and this is where the bus is described. And a lot of businesses over the last 20 years, some people like the bus analogy, some people don't like the bus analogy, but overall it is get the right people on the bus, get them in the right seats, and then create the vision. And that's the piece that's missed at times, is some people think it's start with the vision, then go find the people. And this is really about, no. If you got the right people, they're going to be self-disciplined. They're going to be self-motivated. They're going to take care of it. And they're going to be, right behind you going, let's go. The piece that I see in there that's hard at times is that right seat piece. Can you give how you've done that? Meaning where you've looked at somebody and go, hey, let's try them in another seat. And how do you find that? How do you do that in a company?
Yeah. So in our company, we try to hire for culture, right? I think we're trying to find the who, right? And say like, hey, let's find the right fit people that align with our mission and our purpose and our core values, align with the vision. When you find people that align with those things, it becomes really easy to train them, I've found. I don't know necessarily that it means everybody has to be great at speaking to someone or everybody has to be great at Excel, which is where now you go. There's lots of times in our company where we have many different teams where we may find a great fit, someone that aligns with all those things and really believes in it, but isn't performing well in their area. And you change something. Maybe it's change of a leader, maybe it's change of a role, maybe it's a complete change of a team and they're doing something different. And then all of a sudden they excel. So I think you find the right people. The way we do it is the culture fit, right? So we have a culture fit process where we basically say, hey, are we a good fit for you? And are you a good fit for us? When there's that synergy, lots of really cool things happen. And then say, well, where's the best fit here? Trial and error is okay. I don't think that's a big deal. A lot of times, people may try something for 2 months and then, hey, it didn't work and you're gone. Where we're going to say, hey, we knew you were a good fit 2 months ago. Let's figure out why it's not working in that seat. And again, it could be the leadership style. It could be the role they're in, things like that.
And then, the piece that I think people have to realize too in companies, and this is my perception a bit about the bus analogy, is that some people aren't good for that bus. And that's got to be okay. And if I'm an individual and I'm with a company where I'm not motivated by where the bus is going and what's happening, so I feel demotivated, I'm not excited, I don't really find purpose there, I'm on the wrong bus. And that's okay to say, hey, I need to go to a different bus. And I think that's the hard part where when companies have separation with people and people make it, it feels personal, right? It does, because it feels like, oh, I failed. I didn't do a good job. I messed something up. And it's not necessarily about that. You might have been in the wrong seat or on the wrong bus or just and essentially what we're saying is, hey, this purpose, what we're trying to do as a company didn't motivate you. You weren't excited about it. That's okay. Go find what motivates you. Be excited about it. And to me, I think the hardest part is when people internalize it as it's something about themselves. I know you are somebody who struggles with that.
I do. It's hard.
I don't think there's an easy way to separate as a leader because it impacts them personally. And for me, I'm always focused on I'm hoping they find something that motivates them or gives them that purpose. How about you? How do you?
Yeah, and like you said, it is really hard. I take it personally.
Yeah.
I feel like I've failed that person.
Yeah.
I think the more I've grown and had to experience it over and over, because obviously, it'd be crazy to think everybody's a good fit. It's just silly to think that, but that there is a good fit for that person. And knowing that making this move for this person only opens up many more opportunities. And I've seen that as, we've had to move on from someone or separate, and then you catch up with them or a year or 2 years or 5 years, and they've gone on and done great things that pathway never would have presented itself. So while it's hard in the moment, it goes back to the idea of the building something great and caring enough about someone in the future more so than right now. Well, I feel like I'm really good at caring about them in the moment. It's also important to think about what do they look like in a year if they stayed doing this.
Yeah.
And for me, gosh, it sucks energy. Like it's hard, and you go to bed at night and you're worried about them. And when that move is made, it's almost like there's a relief. In talking to the few people that I've stayed in contact with, it felt the same way for them. Like it really opened up opportunities. And I think just the mindset shift of I still am a caring person and I care a lot about this person, but your point is that the bus can't be a great fit for everybody.
Right. And as a starting point, it's always the ask yourself, right? There's simple questions. Would I hire this person again? Right. If I had the choice, would I hire, knowing what I know today, would I hire this person? That's an easy one to always test your thinking. There was also another concept that I liked, which was there was a business example where there's a CEO that whenever he found somebody that was the right fit, brought them in, whether you had a job opening or not. And I think of you and I, because we met people at this company. There were no job postings. We just had conversations and then joined a company. And here we are 10 years later, still at the same company. So I think that's a testament that sometimes finding the right people and keep your eyes open. Just because you don't have a job opening, sometimes finding that person and finding it in your budget or figuring out how to make it work can pay down the road. So have that open mind that when you find somebody that's just a right fit for your vision and where you're going as a company, maybe you got to find a place for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think we were a great return on our investment, but yeah, we didn't. It's funny when we talk about that.
At least a 10x.
Yeah. But we didn't, right? And Dave had that vision of seeing that, gosh, these are people that align with this. It was interesting for me. I was a golf pro and came from a very innovative golf course that focused on creating just the most exceptional customer experience. And so when I met Dave and that was like his main thing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And it was such a fit, but there wasn't really anywhere to go. Just like, they created spots for us and we've continued to grow through because of the alignment. So I think the opposite side of removing people that aren't fits is bring people on that are, even if there's not a spot, and then watch what happens. Watch what they'll do.
So then he goes into confronting the brutal facts, which, as companies, it can be as simple as there was an example in the book of, abandoning a part of the business that you think is a core part of your business, but you realize the future, where we're headed to, this isn't the future. There was that piece. I think it was, I believe it was Polaroid that actually maybe even had the first digital camera, but X'd it because they were like, no. They didn't face the brutal facts, and that really hurt that company. In the book, he uses the Stockdale paradox, which he talks about Jim Stockdale, who goes into prison for 8 years, and his thought was accepting the brutal fact of where I am and then try to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to make the best? How am I going to make the most of this? And I think to another book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, who also talks somewhat around this concept and how optimism actually can hurt people. It was the people that are, when they're captured, that go, oh, we'll get out by Christmas. Well, then Christmas comes, and then that person maybe passes away or something later because they never leave, being captured. And their brain, they had like a finish line that they had made because they just wanted to be optimistic. Versus like, how am I just going to make the best of my situation right now? What am I going to learn from this? How am I going to grow from it and just accept it? And that idea of facing the brutal facts, I think that's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do that in business? I mean, there's so many times that we look at something and we have to let go of something that we want to hold on to. Is there a time in business where you had to really let go of something that was maybe just something that you felt comfortable with, but realizing I got to let this piece go?
Yeah, and I think one of the parts that you were talking about too was that I think is impactful in this is having the right people around you to help coach you through that moment. Mm-hmm. The mindset of, like, I feel like I'm very optimistic, but there's the point where you have to be real about something. An example would be in our business. I used to work on the clinical side and ran our osteoarthritis knee program, was very successful at it. But at some point, there was this other side of it that was, redirect health, and it was a lot different pathway. But that was the future, mm-hmm. right? My skill set still transferred over very well, but having to let that go, that was comfortable and easy. It almost became easy, and probably the idea if I was good at that, and it would have been easy to stay. But having someone like a Dave and a Paul and yourself who said, hey, challenged me to do something different, forced, I think, the growth and the unique abilities.
Yeah, I mean, throughout this book, I really do feel that it is the people around you that help you be successful, and including with facing the brutal facts. You got to have people around you that can help you there, right? I mean, if you're captured in prison and everybody around you is saying, we're getting out at Christmas, you're probably thinking that too. Yeah. Versus if everybody's around like, hey, let's accept this and let's figure this out and let's make the best of the situation we're in, it's a different mindset. And again, throughout this book, I think that's a key piece. It's a key theme around that. And I think people lose that mindset. And it would speak to the level 4 leaders. The level 4 leaders are all about themselves. A level 4 leader is going to go out and have a bunch of PR articles and news press about how great they are as a CEO. Mm-hmm. You don't hear about the level 5 CEO because the level 5 CEO is just taking care of business behind the scenes. And I think, again, that's why they get that. They get the concept of who am I surrounding myself with? And it's less about my own thinking. Another chapter later on is the culture of discipline. And, again, it's really about the people you hire. If they're motivated, they're going to be disciplined and they're going to take care of stuff. And I would be curious, how do you find yourself finding those people who are so motivated, they have their own discipline versus the people that maybe you feel like you're having to put more energy into? And then what do you do to fix that?
Yeah, I don't know that for me that's ever come out in an interview, like where I found it. Yeah. But I think as I've brought people on, normally my teams are kind of little special force teams where they're out kind of doing some unique projects. And I fall upon that because somebody surprises me with their own discipline and their own accountability, or I'll walk by their desk and I'll see like, what is this they're doing? And they're like, oh, I track all this stuff. So they've created their own processes for it. Mm-hmm. And so I find that on the flip side, the ones that don't, I try to help them, right? I try to go in and say, hey, where can maybe you put these steps in place to create discipline where it's not a natural thing. Certainly the ones that have their own discipline, and I can think of a few right now on my team that have re-energized myself as well. It's great to see, right? And you're able to give them more stuff, less worry, less anxious, anxiety around the thing. So I think finding them though is really just, for me, it's been trial and error. I don't know that I have a proven way to say this is how I find somebody.
Well, but again, I feel that me as a leader find myself putting more effort into people probably like you, because we believe they're going to figure it out, and we have this belief, like, if I just put this much more effort, they're going to get there.
Yeah.
This much more effort, they're going to get there. This much more effort. And we find ourselves just doing that. And again, the right people won't need that.
That's true.
But it's hard.
Yeah.
I can't give you an easy answer.
But I do think, though, as we're talking, it makes me think also, like, I'm talking kind of one way, right? People who maybe report up to me in discipline, and there's a whole resource we just talked about available, maybe people that I report up to get their advice on, hey, I'm spending time with this person, and there's that learning of, goes back to who you're surrounding yourself with.
Yep. So then later in the book, he talks about technology accelerators, and what I liked about technology accelerators is it's not about a company using technology to accelerate. It's about a company being smart about what they do, knowing what they do, and then using technology to enhance something they're good at.
Yeah.
Right? So one way is to go find the technology. So this is perfect timing with AI. So many companies right now are thinking, oh, I'm going to go grab AI. It's going to make my company go from here to here. Versus, hey, I've got this thing that I already know is special. How can I go use AI to make this bigger, make it better, get it in front of more people, enhance what I already know is exciting. I think that's where people get distracted. They think that, oh, this technology is going to fix or make something better, or go, take my company from here to here just because I use technology. I'd be curious, what are you seeing, or what do you think of AI and technology and how to use it? What are you thinking or worried about or thinking about around it as an accelerator for business?
I don't know that I worry about it. I go back to an example of the telephone, right? Like, I have a relationship with my mom because I have a telephone, right? I'll pull it out, and I have a smartphone. It doesn't make my relationship any better, but it is a tool to enhance it and grow it, like you said, just like AI would be. I've seen it just for me in preparing meetings and things, where what it's let me do is spend less time at things I'm not good at, and then I can pour more effort into the things I'm good at. And when I read it, it definitely wasn't about technology is not something that as a company we would focus on, but we're going to focus on the pieces that enhance what we're already doing. Yeah. Like in our world, it would be things like, being able to communicate with a doctor about your healthcare, an app and a telephone, make that much easier, faster, better, you would even say, versus having to say, well, I have to go in and wait in line and talk to somebody face to face. That's an example of, technology enhancing it.
Yeah. So towards the end of the book, you get to the flywheel, and to me, the flywheel is one of the greatest concepts in business, but also for yourself as an individual. And the reason is, you got to imagine this huge, heavy flywheel, and you're pushing and pushing and pushing, and the first turn is probably extremely hard. And the next turn maybe is a little bit easier, but it's still hard. But every time you keep turning and pushing that flywheel, it gets easier, faster, and now you got it really spinning. And when you think about that in our life, in business, it's not, if your company is like this big, right? It's this huge thing. It's got thousands of employees. Well, guess what? It didn't start that way. It started way back there, and somebody kept pushing that flywheel and started growing it, and it got bigger. And there was a great example. He brings up John Wooden. And if you think about John Wooden, he celebrated basketball coach, won all these national championships. He actually coached 15 years before his first national championship at that NCAA level, and 2 years at a lower level. So here's 17 years of college coaching before he gets his national championship. But everybody would say he's a great coach. He didn't make it happen the next year. He built. He got his flywheel turning, and he kept building on it. And he learned from the prior year, made tweaks, figured it out the next year, made tweaks, figured it out the next year, and just kept turning that flywheel. I think that concept right there is very crucial, because so many companies get involved in his doom loop, which is basically go to the short answer, right? So the short answer is, let's get rid of half our workforce, we're going to save some money, we're going to do this, and we're going to make profits. You did. And then they move on to the next thing, and they move on to the next thing, and they move on to the next thing, and they find that company eventually fizzles out. Versus, okay, what can we do? And just keep building, keep growing, keep moving. What do you use in your life or business around the flywheel concept?
Yeah, and to me, it goes back to the hedgehog of doing the same simple thing over and over. And I love the wooden example. when I read his book and Bill Walton talked about going to the campus and the first day and the practice at UCLA, and he's going to be so excited to play for this coach. And the first thing he did was he took his socks off, and he's got these old crusty feet, and he's showing them how to put a sock on. And you think about the 17 years of doing that and the momentum it built. And he goes, the seniors are sitting there learning again for their fourth time, right, how to put a sock on. So it's the small things, right? A lot of times we don't miss the big things, the details, or the larger things we'll capture, but the very small details are often easily missed. I think by doing those things in a repeatable way, it gets the flywheel started. And then, as you know, once you get it going, it goes by itself.
Right. And they're in the book, when they analyzed these companies, they said, look, none of these companies that were good to great companies named an event. They didn't have this was how we, broke the ceiling. This is how we went from here. We named it this, or we had this process, or we did this one thing. It was no, it was just, we just ran the company. Because when you're in it and you're turning the wheel, you don't really see what's happening, right? Like if we were to look at our own companies 10 years ago, things are completely different. Yeah. But if we were to look maybe 6 months ago, maybe it doesn't feel as different, right? Because whatever time frame you pick, it's harder to see. But the further you go out, maybe you start to see the difference. And it's not always about growth, right? The companies in this book, they weren't about how do we grow? How do we become the biggest company ever? How do we become the best ever? Mm-hmm. No, they use the hedgehog concept, find something simple, focus on it, make it better, keep working, keep making it better, and find that growth on its own. If you put your head down here and you keep turning that wheel, good things happen.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of our discussion, Mike. Is there any last things you'd like to discuss or bring up around good to great, and any last words?
So I would say the one thing, obviously in the shifting from good to great, and again, I recently read Great by Choice. It is a great piggyback on the good to great concept. He adds a lot of different flavor to it that I think it helped me when I went back and reread it, really understand a lot of the principles.
Okay. And with that, thank you for joining us for the book club of Optimistic American. We talked today again about good to great. We're going to actually dive into Great by Choice, Jim Collin's other book that he wrote more recently. And we're going to compare the two and look at how do those books compare in the aspect of which one should you read and maybe which one should you read first. We'll talk about that at our next session. If you like what you heard today, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining the Optimistic American Show. Now help us grow by subscribing to our channel. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a like and a comment. There is so much more that we have planned. We can't wait for you to embark upon this journey with us.